welcome to Truth in Politics, presented by ONV. And we have in the house a political legend from here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's the one, it's the only Mr. Glynn Hines. How you doing, Mr. Hines?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here and feeling great.
That's good. I'm glad to have you here. Miss Audrey, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing so well, Clarence. I'm just glad to be between these two strong brothers here in Fort Wayne. And it's May, and the school year's about to end.
Yes.
We're about to celebrate Memorial Day. I just couldn't be happier right now.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Hines, first of all, on behalf of the city and ONV, we want to thank you for all the service that you have given this city. You've been on the city council and part of the city forever. And I know on the city council almost 25 years, if not 25 years.
24 years, 9 months, and a couple of days.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. And we just thank you because you were one that fought. You fought tooth and nail. You always kept the southeast side of town in your forefront. And we just want to give you your flowers and your thanks right now while you can hear them.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to serve. See, my father was a precinct committeeman within the Democratic Party, so I grew up in that environment of politics. I used to get my hair cut at Knuckles Barbershop. John Knuckles, 1959,
yes.
the very first African-American elected to city council. So I saw that happen. So when I see that happen in 1959, then I see Sharon Tucker selected in 2024, it's just like an epiphany for me to say that political process from there to here, it's just been a wonderful experience.
Yes.
Things come full circle.
Wow, and to live through and to see all of that is an amazing thing. You know, I remember Mr. Knuckles in his latter years. I never knew him while he was serving, but I knew his family through the latter years. A wonderful man.
Can I ask you too, Mr. Hines, when you think about how Sharon Tucker is, now 20 days in office or so, when you think about the preparation that she had, I mean, this is a woman that sat on the county council for 4 years, the only Democrat, the only female, the only African-American, then sat on the city council in your former seat, and then was going into a second term, got selected. What do you think about serving the 6th District especially prepared her for the job she holds now?
Well, I think, first of all, before she decided to go into politics, and this is a teachable moment, folks, if you're considering going into politics, you need to live that life before you run for office. So before she ran for office, she was a good Christian. She was involved in the community. She decided to run for county council and won. And then she decided, and she always told me, she said, Glenn, if you ever decide not to run again, I want to be the person. So we had a couple of years to talk before I decided not to run because of my kidney.
Right.
So Sharon has been prepared for being the mayor for many years, and then this is my faith, is that what God has intended for you, what God has intended for you,
yes, sir, preach it.
You're going to get it.
Preach it.
If it's not intended for you, then you're not going to get it.
Yes.
So that's why I think she's a blessed and highly favored individual. I love her. She's very honest, salt of the earth. They underestimated her, those folks that were, let me just say it, Phil Gilquin's crew thought that they thought that they had it locked in, and they didn't because they did not have the relationships.
Amen.
You're asking the question about Sharon. Sharon had established over the years, whether it was on county council, city council, or just walking down the street, positive relationships with folks. So those 92 people got a chance to examine, of these 5 or 6 people, whatever it was, who is it that we have the most confidence in? And in fact, it was Sharon Tucker who had prepared herself. So to your question, the 6th District, county council, within her church, within the community, she's been preparing for leadership. And God made a way out of no way.
Amen. Mr. Hines, I know when you started out, still there was Mr. Knuckles, he was the first one. Then there was Mr. Edmonds, which was another wonderful man. So you followed in some footsteps of some great men, but I know you still had some struggles within your first few years. What were some of the struggles that you personally faced?
See, luckily, and I told the example about John Knuckles because I stood on his shoulders, and I always remember the struggles that he had being the first. And then, of course, after him was Charles Redd.
Yes, Mr. Redd.
In the first district. And then Archie Lundsey in the 1st District. Of course, Cletus in the 6th. I was the 5th elected city council African-American.
Okay.
Victor Scruggs filled in for John Knuckles for a little period of time, and then the election of '83 is when Charles Red won. So there's been 6 people that had served up until then, and of course, luckily in 2019 we had 6th District, Sharon Tucker, myself, and Michelle Chambers actually win at large, which had never happened. So yeah, so I appreciated all that history before I got there. But the funny thing is, I always say that when preparation meets opportunity, you have to take advantage of it. So I had been preparing in a leadership role with the NAACP. I was vice president under J.B. Presley back in the day. I had worked with Reverend Jordan. I was a member of his church and worked with his Stop the Madness organization. So I've been doing things, dabbling in community service for many years. So when opportunity came, presented itself, I was ready for prime time.
And what do you think now? I mean, here we are, you know, you made the announcement last, like, what was it, around April, that you weren't going to seek re-election at large. And then, you know, then you were able to formally step down in January when everybody took their oaths. As you look at the horizons now with Sharon in office and other things, Raleigh Brooker just recently taking Sharon's former seat. Congrats to her. That's a hard-won seat. This is a strong woman for it. What are you hoping for the next 30 years in Fort Wayne city government? What do you think is possible? What are you hoping for your predecessors or your successors?
Well, quite honestly, the highest position in the city government is the mayor. And so my number one hope would be that Sharon is elected in 2027 so that she can do her second term and be voted in by the people. Because there's some little scuttlebutt about how that selection process went and why is it that only 92 people were able to pick her, and why can't I vote for her, which was really teachable moment for me and others to tell people that's why you need to get involved at the precinct level and your party level, so that when opportunities come like this, you will have the opportunity to vote. So that was eye-opening. But I can't go out 30 years. I can just go the next 3.5 years. I'm wishing Sharon the best, and then in 27, I'm hoping that she'll get reelected, and that other people will prepare themselves to run for office, whether it be city council, county commissioners. And that's what it is that people have got to prepare themselves. Just like when I do the campaign, Michelle Chambers calls me the GOAT as it relates to politics, because
Greatest of all time.
But I have a lot of institutional knowledge that I can share with anybody that's serious, you know, about running for office. Because I know, like John Knuckles, I'm going to tell you one thing. John Knuckles told me and everybody that was in the room at the time when he won in 1959, he says, I'm starting tomorrow to run for office 4 years from now. So, and I told Michelle, when Michelle lost the first time at large, she was crying, upset, and I'm the GOAT. So I told her, hey, look, I know you feel bad. Starting tomorrow, you start running for city council at large in 4 years, which is what she'll tell you. That I told her that, and that's what she did. She was, and if you remember, she was grinding and doing all those things. And then the party and other folks didn't think that two African Americans could win. Oh, maybe one can win, but 2 African Americans at large, never been done before. And I said, Satan, get the hints. I said, we got a plan. So me and Sharon and Michelle and Ramadan and a few other people in our inner circle said, here's the plan. And we worked the plan, planned the work, worked the plan, and of course, we won.
Yes.
And same way with Sharon, the other camps, I just won't mention Giaquina, but the other camps thought that they had, you know, an inside track on that. But Sharon planned her work, worked her plan, and of course got the votes necessary to be the first African-American, first female mayor.
And speaking of teachable moments, just real quick, because I was a part of the 92 precinct chairs that were able to elect from those 7 candidates. And there's been articles written about Sharon's unique approach. But I want Fort Wayne to know that was a victory of organizing.
Yeah.
Sharon is a relational organizer by nature. And instead of sending 17 mailers, which we got from some other candidates,
Right.
and instead of having 7 press conferences,
Right.
she just continued to work about 7 or 8 people that were then in charge of building those relationships, advancing those relationships with all the other precinct chairs. And we walked into that room confident that we would have a solid turnout that first round. I can't tell you how breathtaking it was. That the first round had already resulted with her having only 9 votes short of the majority.
Now, teachable moment.
Yes, sir. I'm ready to learn.
The other piece of that scenario is what, in my contact from Atlanta with Sharon and what was going on with the team, and I said, what we need to do is get an agreement from some other candidates that if they are not in the top 2, they will sway their votes to Sharon so that whatever that number, not knowing what the number would be, that would get her over the 50% plus 1.
Right.
So that was another strategic part of the whole scenario that took place. And somebody on the other team, one of the other teams, was asking me, we didn't see it coming. We didn't. I said, no. How'd you do it? I said, because it's all not, it was a text mail, and I text RELATIONSHIP, relationships, in bold. I said, it's about relationships. And if you might think a person's in a position and they have, whatever.
Right.
But until you hit the ground, until you press the flesh and establish solid relationships, you don't know what'll happen. So yeah, it's great.
So you are the go. You working behind the scenes. I see that here. But Mr. Mr. Hines, we have this problem not only in our city and our country, but we as a community don't vote all the time, and we don't vote for the right things. How do we get our community to stay involved in the voting process?
And I'm glad you said that we, because I think you mean we as a whole.
Yes.
As a people. Because in the United States of America, when they have elections and you only have 30, 40% turnout, in Fort Wayne we had 17 in the primary, some crazy number. So you have anybody that almost could win an election. That's why Trump has that solid following.
Right.
Now, he can't win, I don't think, because I think there's enough rational people that's going to vote for the other.
Let's
I'm just
hope.
saying. That's my prayer.
Let's hope.
They're just, that number is so embarrassing to the democratic political process every time it comes around. And I always use the analogy, example, when John Knuckles ran in 1959, turnout was 75%.
Amen. Wow, look at that.
The turnout was 70%. But it was, again, the strategy of precinct, and that's what we did at large when me and Michelle ran. We identified precincts and what the vote was and where we needed to identify those specific precincts that would get the vote that we wanted. Your question on a much macro level is, how do we get citizens, John Q. Public citizen, Jane Q. Public citizen, to get out and vote? And I think it's up to those of us that are in leadership positions to continually share the concept of the importance of having a democratic process. Because if certain things happen in November and a certain person gets elected, you're going to see a lot of that destroyed.
Right.
Because it's a real thin line, like I say, between love and hate, between a democratic society and a non-democratic fascist society. And we're close to the edge if people don't come out and vote. So continually, I have always, did voter registration, voter education, and what I call voter motivation.
Right.
And I think those are 3 key concepts that need to be on the national. And I'm in Atlanta now. I was at least for a few months, and I see the organization at the grassroots level that's happening, and that's why they have 2 Democratic senators now because of that grassroots type involvement. If you say Fort Wayne, we've got to get more people involved at the grassroots level to have those relationships so they can get on the phone, or when they go to church or grocery store, they see a person that they know, and you have registered, you have voted early, voted early, and continue to do it. It has to be the drumbeat.
Yep.
Right.
7 or 8 times a week
Yes.
they need to hear about that. And it's proven, like Glenn's saying, that if we talk to our family and friends, going back to the power of relationships, right? We all have neighbors, we all have family and friends. Start now making voting cool. You know what I mean? Start now talking about what was achieved 2 weeks ago and how in 3 months or 3 years we're going to need to make sure that she stays elected and that we spread that power, right?
Right. Now, full transparency, elephant in the room. I'm going to be, because we've had this show for a couple of years, and I was critical on Nelson Peters and Mayor Henry. It is not the person. I want to make it sure it's the office in which they're held. So my question is, and it's an elephant in the room, and it's been, a balancing act about Ms. Tucker, respecting the position, but how do we still hold our people that are in office accountable without seeming overly critical, that we can get the results that we're looking for?
My answer is, having been in office for 24 years and 9 months, if a citizen comes to me with a concern or criticism, it's my job to find a solution or to pursue a way to address that. I don't promise that I can fix everything. And I think even Sharon, and she knows, believe me, that, I don't want to say that, but one of her biggest critics is going to be people that look like her.
True. We'll give it that.
One of her biggest critics have already been. And when I have to defend, I'm like, well, hey, man, wait a minute, time out. That person before her, before him, that was their first time in there. And what did they do? Their first term and da-da-da. I said, so hold her to the same standard. Don't hold her to any less or any more of a standard. And we got to hold them responsible. Luckily, in Sharon's case, she's been on the county side. She's been on the city side. And the things that she told me, and I guess I can share this. She said, Glynn, you'd be surprised what the mayor didn't tell us that we needed to know to make decisions. She said, the one thing I'm going to do with all the council members is I'm going to give them all the information that I have to help them make a decision.
Wow.
So she learned that her first week on the job. So I'm saying already there's a paradigm shift from what used to be to what is for me, and I share that because that's what she shared with me. And I had been a council member, and I know many times we had tough votes, and we were scratching our head like, why do they do that? And da da da. And then she's saying that the first thing, or she's already done it, meet with the council members to let them know. Here's what you need to know. We as John Q. Public, if the street needs to be done, we got to call in, 311 or whatever, and say, hey, there's a pothole. We still have to be participatory and let the powers that be that know what they need to know, but we're not going to always agree on everything.
Right.
That's not going to be a reality. So again, being the GOAT, I tell people in the New York second, you're not going to like all my decisions.
True.
If you go back and look at my commercial when I ran for at-large, in my commercial, I said, hey, we're not going to agree on all the issues, but I can promise you that I'm going to try to make decisions that's for the betterment for the entire community. That's all I can promise you, and that's what I try to do.
That's what you've done.
I think, too, Clarence, just to tag team off of that, I think, I ran for city council at large last year and was part of that chorus that oftentimes was critical toward the seating members of city council. And I actually approached Sharon in January at a Democratic Party meeting after, running and then having some time to get distance and recognizing how we're all human, right?
Yes.
And how we're all trying to live our values in the system that we are in.
Right.
Right? And so I think it's important for the public and for, maybe some skeptical members who think that systems are broken, they could always be improved, which I count myself among. It's always important to recognize that if you are more comfortable being the chorus of critics than you are of the solution builders, then there's a subculture you're already building. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So if you're going to complain, do something about it.
Right.
I got you.
And start building your relationships and start collaborating with those who have the power. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Hines, we're not going to just talk about the past. You say 24
years, 9 months, in a few days.
A few days?
Yeah.
So, in that time, tell me, what was your greatest accomplishment, your coup de grace? What do you stand most proudly and firm on?
Well, the thing that I told Channel 15 when they interviewed me was that I lived for 24 years, 9 months.
Amen.
Because Jimmy Steer had died in office. Cletus Edmonds replaced him, died in office. And I was in office, and every day I made sure I did my sit-ups, did my push-ups, had that cup of coffee. And but no, seriously, and then unfortunately the mayor passed, not long ago, and in office.
Yes.
And there was a discussion, I'm sure Miss Davis knows that he was not going to run. And then there was a change of heart because he and I are the same age. And it's like, hey, the stressors as a councilman versus the stressors as a mayor, I can't imagine.
Right.
The stressors that appear. So when I look at accomplishments, I just say that, number one, I stayed healthy, and I had 3 major operations. I stayed healthy enough to do 24 years, 9 months. But I think, number one, that truth to power. It's hard for you to go back and look at anything that I said over those 24 years and say, well, he lied about that.
Oh, that's great right there.
It'd be real hard. I might have had to change of heart and change my vote on something, but I tried the truth to power. And sometimes it hurts other people to hear the truth because they don't want to hear it. Just like, I'm supporting Sharon Tucker to replace Henry. Well, there's some folks that, I think I'm better qualified. You might think you're better qualified, but I think Sharon is. And then haven't called me back, haven't talked. I don't care. I think that within my scope of decision making, the decisions that I have made were for the betterment of the community. Electric Works. I got in trouble with the Henry organization for threatening to do some things in the court system with that, but I didn't care. What team are you on? I said, I'm on the people's team.
There you go.
I support the people, and if it upsets your team that I'm not going to support that nonsense, then sorry, I can't do that. So no, I was honest to a fault, because my father, Alfonso Earl Hines, used to say, boy, there's one thing about telling a lie. You can't remember which one you told, and it's better to tell the truth, I still got a whooping for whatever it was that I did when I finally told the truth. But no, you got, in my opinion, in politics especially, you've got to stay as close to principle-centered that you can. And even if it's not popular, you've got to have your rationale for what it is that you believe, and proceed. So within those 24 years, 9 months, from the time that we started with Southtown and downtown development, all the way up to Electric Works and Starks' housing project, and all the stuff that's happening positive that I was a part of, it's too much for me to say that one thing.
I feel you.
It's way too much for me to say one thing.
Now, when did you know it was time?
Time to leave?
Yes.
That was driven by health. Okay. See, I had a kidney replacement December the 8th, 2016. And that's when I decided not to run for city council, 6th district. And then in December of 2018, I got a kidney replacement. And I have a kidney replacement to this day. And it changed my life. I was ready to rock and roll. So I talked to my wife, and my wife said, if you're feeling this good and you want to run for at-large, then do it. So then I went to Michelle, because Michelle was running at-large, and she was a little nervous about 2 of us running for at-large. Well, it's going to hurt my vote. I said, no, it's going to help you. I said, we get out, and if we do the team the way we wanted to do it. So that was a little testy for quite a while. I don't know if you noticed it, but it was tested for a while. But then after we won, brother. Then all of a sudden I was the GOAT. Oh, you're smarter than you look. And you're damn scared. But we were able to pull it off and get both of us elected because we were very targeted. Yeah. But yeah, I knew it was time not to run for this last election, and I always announced it was in April. I always announced in January Martin Luther King at the MLK Club. I always announced what's up, and I announced there that I was not going to run. And a little after, I think Sharon announced that she was going to run for it, and I fully supported her. And that was when I said, I'm feeling good enough to retire and enjoy, the fourth quarter of the game, football, fourth quarter. We're in the fourth quarter.
Yes, sir.
So I said, it's time to do that. And then, Candace and Monique was both pregnant, and another grandbaby's coming along, and I want to enjoy them at some point in time. So I was locked in. Everybody was like, you going to change your mind? And change your mind. Because I knew then that it was time for me to do other things with my life. Because I'm an A-type character. I mean, I got to do something. I got to be involved. And politics at that time was in good hands
Yeah.
with Sharon and Michelle, and Raleigh on the school board,
board, yeah.
Danita out there in Adams Township. So, there was some good things happening. And the thing of it is, my ego is not that I got to be, in center stage.
Right.
I'm the GOAT, but I don't have to be out here.
Right.
And I came to the realization that I enjoy doing a lot of other things other than just being in politics. And I'm going to tell you that for the last time, I did not want to die in office.
I feel you.
It was real for me.
I feel you.
Cletus and Jimmy Steer had set the precedent. And I was like, well, my health has been up and down. And now that it's up, I better go out on top.
Right.
I think it's so admirable. I just have to highlight this because I'm a Catholic by tradition, and when Pope Francis when Pope Benedict, before he was in his elder years, when he stepped aside and said, "Hey, the church needs somebody new, somebody to breathe some life into things," I always wondered what that felt like, how it felt like to go from being in the limelight to kind of, obviously you still had relationships with everybody who were at those seats of power, but how did that feel to get used to that, no longer being up front and center?
Relieved. You do not know, and if you get a chance to have a coffee or a tea with Sharon, and the one question asked her is, how's it going? How does it feel? And I don't care what she tells you, and what she should do, that's stress. Because you catch it, as a councilman, you catch it from within the district.
Right.
I had a high-touch, high-contact 6th district.
Yep.
I mean, at church,
Right.
at the grocery store.
You were everywhere. You were active in the community.
Yeah, I always have been. But I was on the golf course one day at hole number 9 in Foster Park, putting for a birdie, which would have won me some money. And a lady over there on the other side of the fence walking said, "Hines!"
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Like, no. I said, "Just a minute." She, "No, I want to." The word she said, "I want to witch at you. I got to witch at you."
Yeah.
So then she complained about her garbage not being. That was during that era, remember?
Right.
Yes.
Red River was horrible.
Yes.
And I listened, and then I went back and missed the putt. But anyway, it's kind of crazy that the stressors of the job are so tremendous that when you step away, for me at least, and I'm not ego driven that I got to be in the middle and I can step away, that it was so relieving. It's so tranquil to wake up in the morning and have that cup of coffee. And what day is the day? What I got to do today? And I got a calendar still, and I put things in the doctor appointments and stuff like that. Honeydew. But man, let me tell you, in terms of as far as
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole nother 359 degrees to life.
a whole nother. And it's just like, for me right now, I've been enjoying every day. I'm up. And it tickles people that come up to me and ask me that question. "Don't you miss it?" I say, "No."
Let me golf.
Yeah. It's like, and then when they start asking me questions, I don't work for the city anymore. 911, 311, 427-1111. That's the mayor's office. Call somebody. Who
Call
can
somebody
do,
but you, huh?
Yeah, that can do something. Because I can't do it anymore. I'm not in that position, and I'm enjoying it.
So other than retirement, I know you say you stay busy. What are you doing right now? Are you doing anything that's still contributing, or are you just taking it day by day and living your life?
Consulting with those who need to be and asked to be consulted in politics. I'll just leave that door open for your imagination. Consult with them. Before I came here, I just got out of the garden, and I got my rows of kale, my rows of collard greens, my rows of tomatoes, my rows of onions. So I got a nice little garden in the backyard that keeps me busy. Play golf yesterday, and me and CC Full played 9 holes. He beat me by 1 stroke, so I had a good day of golf, not bad. Tomorrow I'll do the same kind of thing. So I'm selective, and I think I promised my wife I'd take a year away from commitments where I got to be there that day at that time, 1st of the month, 15th of the month, or whatever.
Right.
Take a year and do that, and then next year I'll decide which boards that I want to serve on, because I've been offered a few boards. I said, no, I need a year just to see what it's like. And then next year, I just know my personality. I'll be on a board or commission doing things like I normally did when I was councilman, but just not to the extent of being elected.
Right. Well, Mr.
Kudos
Hines,
to you, Mr. Hines.
I want again, on behalf of all that have benefited from your service, we want to give you a great thanks. We owe you a debt of gratitude for the work that you put in here in the southeast side of Fort Wayne. And again, you've always been approachable. You've always been personable. You've always been a man of your word and of your people. So we all have had some encounter. Anybody that wanted to have like you say, we could walk up to you and you wouldn't shoo us away. I know you might have wanted to, but you sat and listened. So that is a testament to your character, and we thank you for that.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's like I said, Channel 15 interviewed me in December, and I shared with them some similar things I shared. The only thing I'll say differently, I think it's critically important for anyone that's listening to your show, to get involved. Make a difference. Don't be good, be great. Give yourself an opportunity to see what you're capable of doing, because if you sit there on the couch and you don't do anything, you never know what your true potentials are. So I'm encouraging, especially young people, but all people, especially young people, is stretch. Don't be just good, but be great.
Amen.
That's a word. That's
Amen.
a word.
Hear, hear.
We want to thank you all for joining us. And again, like he said, don't just be good, be great. Do what you can do and then do beyond that. I hear you. We want to thank you again for joining us, Mr. Hines, Miss Audrey. As we always tell the people before we leave them, always protect your mind.